Hello and welcome to our pop-up live stream. We are at the Discovery Center are really excited about having National Geographic explorer and researcher Shane Gero with us. Shane is from Canada and researches whale families down in Dominique. So welcome, Shane. First of all, did I pronounce your last name right?
That's Shane Gero, RG.
Harji. Okay, thank you. Shane Gero. So Shane, first of all, thanks for making some time out. You are in Canada, Toronto, I believe.
In Ottawa, so it's the national capital. Yeah.
Okay, not Toronto then.
No.
And so we met last year at National Geographic Explorers Fest, which ironically should be happening this week, but it's not. And you were telling us about the work that you did with whales, and I was just fascinated by some of your research, especially about sperm whales and whales families. So I'm just going to toss it all the way over to you and tell us about your work.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let me just make sure my slides are up and ready. Thank you for that great introduction, Anne. My name is Shane Gero, and I am a National Geographic explorer, and I'm the founder of the Dominica Sperm Whale Project, who's followed the lives of sperm whales for a number of years now. And today I kind of want to bring you into the cultural lives of sperm whales. So sperm whales have been sperm whales for longer than humans have been humans, and so their stories are much older and quite literally deeper than our stories. And today I'm going to tell you the story of one animal, and her name is Digit. And that's her in the middle with her mom fingers above her and her cousin Enigma below. And in these early graining pictures, she's already 3 meters long and weighed over a ton. And that's just about average for a baby sperm whale. So the ocean is really, really big, and so you have really, really huge animals living in it. But when her cousin Enigma reaches full size in maybe 25 years' time, she'll be long as 2 school buses and weigh as much as 10 of them. So a male sperm whale is really the largest toothed whale in the entire ocean and one of the biggest animals to ever live ever. But I've been following Digit and Enigma's family since before they both were born. And I founded the Dominica Sperm Whale Project about 15 years ago. And since then, I've literally spent thousands of hours following them and 30 other families of sperm whales in the Caribbean Sea. And this is our family. We have a diverse team with many different and important roles that come from lots of different countries. The bulk of our science gets done from graduate students who go to universities to go after their degrees. And right now, all of our graduate students are women. These are the grad students here. They do their own research projects with their own degrees, but they build and support each other's work in our larger project. We have both master's and PhD students working on the project, and their focus is the research, but they also play a key role in conservation and ethics. We work also with students from the Dominica State College who join us through this Marine Conservation Leadership Program, and 2 of them have gone on to do degrees in marine science as well. Now, when we work from the sailboat, it's also really important that we have a professional skipper, or someone who has years and years of sailing experience and is an expert captain. And for the last few years, that's been Steph. And she's a Royal Yacht Master instructor, and she's one of very few women to hold that title. So we're really happy to have her with us. And when we live and work from shore, we have a team made up of our skilled boat captain and his crew, Kurt. Their skills with their research boat are key for our success to put computers on the backs of whales. If Ricardo wants a boat to park on a dime, he does it. We also work really closely with Marine Protected Area and government officers like Zethra, who's a fisheries officer for the government of Dominica. And she's the link between our research and Dominica's management and conservation. And we even, from time to time, have volunteers from all sorts of backgrounds. So there's lots of ocean careers that are important for protecting whales and the oceans. The whales need lawyers, they need entrepreneurs, they need politicians, they need teachers and military, they need national park rangers, they even need chefs and restaurant staff. They need all of us, even if we don't live near the oceans. And our project has been about learning what it's like to grow up in a sperm whale family of ocean nomads. But in doing that, we've built our own little family of ocean explorers. Our family of people living above the surface, learning about their families living below. And it's really been the first time that anyone's come to know these leviathans as individuals with personalities, as brothers and sisters, as mothers and babysitters. Not the right slide here. Here you go. When Digit's mom makes a deep dive, she's diving deeper than modern nuclear attack submarines. And she can be down there for over an hour, just on a single breath of air. Her unique nose is what allows her to go deep. When she's diving, she echolocates and uses sound to see her entire world. Sperm whale society, sperm whale families are matrilineal. That means that grandmothers, mothers, and their daughters live together for their entire life. Because for a sperm whale, family is the most important thing in their life. They need each other, they take care of each other, and they love each other. And this is Digit's family. I call them the group of 7. We've given all these whales names because who they are is important to them. Pinchy is a different whale than Fingers, and that difference is important. Each whale is unique, and everyone counts. You're not the same as your sister or your brother, and your mom is different from all other mothers. We can't replace anyone with someone else, and one way we make that clear is by giving individuals names. And it's really easy to tell them apart. We take pictures of their tails to do that, and their tail flukes are kind of like a human fingerprint. Each one is different. Some have really big marks, some are really subtle with color, or little tiny holes. And this one is Mysterio, who's also in Digit's family. And you can help too. I've helped to build a platform called Flukebook, which uses computer vision algorithms and deep learning to identify and track individual whales or dolphins across hundreds of thousands of photos. So if you have a picture of a whale, you can actually help researchers like me make new discoveries by going to flukebook.org. But for now, the sperm whale families in the Caribbean are typically about 7 whales, and each family has their own way of doing things. In the group of 7, in Digit's family, you only get milk from your mom, not from your aunt or your babysitter. But in their neighboring family, family unit A, the Atwood Collective, we know that the 2 little ones named Accra and Aurora seem to get milk from more than just their mom. The babysitters will also allow the babies to feed from them in this family. So some families move slowly and spend a lot of time with us off the island of Dominica, and others will move through really, really quickly in the waters farther offshore. They have different ways of life. Just like some of you out there tonight will have pasta for dinner and eat it with a fork, and others will have fish and eat with chopsticks. We're all humans. We're all eating dinner together as a family. But the way that we've learned to do it is different because we have different moms who taught us how to do these things differently. There isn't a right and a wrong way. It's just that these families learn traditions from their mom, who learned it from their mom, who learned it from their mom, and so on and so on and so on. And strong female leaders aren't just a sperm whale thing. The ocean is full of strong natural lions, including like the orca or the killer whale, which some of you may have seen in the wild if you've been out whale watching in the Pacific Northwest. Elder female resident killer whales lead the group movement of their families. And their leadership is most obvious when food is scarce. It's hard to find. When times are really bad, orca rely on their grandmothers and their mothers' wisdom, their ecological knowledge, to make sure that they can find food to survive. And these lessons, which are really their grandmother's secrets about how they do things, are their culture. And that's really important to them. And they seem to mark these different ways of life with different languages. So when a sperm whale family talk to each other, hear that. They make different rhythms of clicks. It's kind of like a Morse code-like system. And all of the families in the Eastern Caribbean that we've met so far today in my talk are all from the Eastern Caribbean clan. When they talk, they all sound the same. All of the families make this one secret code when they talk. It's unique to them, and only the Caribbean sperm whales make it. It's called the 1 + 1 + 3. It doesn't seem like the audio is going to work today, but it sounds something like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. But other families who also live in the Caribbean Sea have learned to do things differently. And families that do things differently sound different too. This is the X-women. They're not from the same clan as the other families we talked about today. Their family's bigger, they seem to move around faster and more offshore, and they speak a code that we know is very different. They never make the 1+1+3 coda like Digit Family or the Atwood Collective. Instead, they make the 5R coda, which is very regular and sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're still sperm whales, but they do things differently and they speak a different language. And that's how whales recognize each other. Because it turns out that families that speak the same language will spend time together, and families that don't won't. It's their secret code to figure out who is who. See, behavior is what you do. Behavior is what you do, but culture is how you've learned to do it. And these cultures aren't trivial. It's not just animals learning from each other. They're cultures that define their identity, just like it does for us. Where I come from defines who I become, and who I am defines so much of what I'll do. And me just saying I am Canadian kind of gives you an idea that I probably really like maple syrup and playing hockey. It helps you give an idea of who I am. In each culture, whale or otherwise, is really just a set of solutions of how to solve the problems in the place that you live. And so if the Caribbean whales disappear, if we lose all of those grandmothers, we lose all the traditional knowledge of what it means to be a Caribbean pet, and generations of indigenous wisdom on how to survive there. And their grandmothers' lessons are really a connection between the animals and the part of the ocean where they live. And it's because they've lived there for generations. These cultures passed on by generations of strong female leaders are a significant reason behind why these animals succeed. If I've learned one thing from my time in the whale culture, it's the power of community. In the face of unimaginable obstacles, we come together to overcome them. So the take-home message here from these whale stories is to go out and build bigger definitions of us. There are many different people and animals in our global community. And at a time in history when we seem at our most divided, if we're going to preserve life, ours and theirs, we need to find ways to succeed together, to find empathy for our neighbors, and to find ways to coexist above and below the surface, and to value cultural diversity in our societies and our ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Wow. You said a lot of things. Writing down all my questions. And we won't have time to.
Too bad we missed the chance for them to speak for themselves a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay, so go back. First of all, I want to give another shout out to Fluke Book, and that's a citizen science project that you run, and people can engage with the pictures of the whales and help you identify them. Is that how it works, or sort them?
Well, now it's a user contribution. So if you go out whale watching or you have photos of whales from your previous trip, you can upload them and match them against the whales that are up there now, and the matching is done in an automated way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's your reason to go on a whale watching tour. It's for science. You're not just going for vacation. It's going for science. So you use the word to describe the relationships amongst the whale family, love, and that in human terms is really loaded. So I'm assuming you have evidence or a reason for using that term. What examples have you seen that would make you think that it's more than just sort of a mutual dependency, but there's actually something more happening there?
Well, I think one of the things that spending thousands of the hours in the company of individual animals makes you realize is that some of our assumptions have been flipped for a bit too long. So the assumption that humans are dramatically different and distinct in many ways, just don't hold up to the light of doing science, right? So on the project, we make assumptions that often are the other way around, and then do objective research based on the questions that come from there, right? So, I mean, there's no way you spend time with these families and don't see, uh, beyond a mutual dependence. While animals, including sperm whales, have to fight for their survival much more than humans do in some cases on a day-to-day basis. They're out there right now finding food and defending from predators while we're here, talking via computer and this amazing thing that only humans can do. But when you have a mom who's raising a baby in what literally is a family, it's impossible for me to assume that that doesn't involve love. And that, especially for individuals, right? Because you see how families change when grandmothers or daughters or babies are lost, and how the social network of that family changes. So it's not just that you're taking one animal out, any animal. It's a specific individual that had relationships that it built across time. And while we've never seen it with sperm whales, there's been observations of what can unequivocally be seen as grief when an animal is lost, whether it's in elephants or pilot whales or chimpanzees. And so if you have grief, there has to be love. Quantifying that from a scientific perspective is really, really hard as a biologist, but I think that we can build our science on that as an assumption rather than the opposite, which is to assume they're sort of mindless automatons that raise their babies and send them off into the world.
So you had, and I never thought of the ocean this way. Excuse me. You talked about the matriarchs with this indigenous knowledge of place. And we generally tend to think of the ocean as this big, wet place with fish and whales. Tell us about the ocean as best you can from a whale's perspective.
Yeah, well, the ocean is, that's why I think their family lives is so surprisingly similar, because the ocean is a very different place from our world. It's, as you say, very huge. These are animals that are operating on hundreds of kilometers for their families, thousands of kilometers for their clans. And it's massively three-dimensional. These animals spend more time in the darkness of the deep ocean. They're more sort of surfacers than they are divers, right? And most of the ocean is very blank. There isn't a lot of stuff. And it's very homogeneous, right? What the ocean looks like here is very similar to what it looks like a kilometer away. Whereas for a baboon troop, that tree is very different from a tree that might be 100 meters away. And so there's no territoriality in ocean-going animals. I mean, there is on coral reef fish and animals that live on the ground, but not in the ocean. And so they're much more nomadic. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a sense of place. These animals are clearly broadcasting their identity to us, or at least we're able to recognize them. And especially in the Caribbean, where we've shown that they have much smaller home ranges. Moving a few hundred kilometers for a Caribbean family is a lot, whereas in the Pacific, moving 4,000 kilometers is not unheard of. So it's important to think about how animals that do learn from each other and do pass on traditions, how much of that is a link to the part of the world in which they live. The best example of that in science that has been well documented is these matriarchs of elephants. And the older matriarchs have a better understanding of what happened longer ago. And when you have this massive drought, say, the drought of half a century, the elephants that are 60 or 70 will remember the last one and know where to go to find water. But all the matriarchs who were younger didn't, and their families didn't do as well. So that really shows us that they're using this understanding of the world and passing that information down to succeed in the place that they live. And I mean, that's relatable in that, there are people who live in the deep Amazon or in very arid desert climates, then you can't just take someone from New York and throw them in there just because they're a human. It's not a genetic material thing, right? It's about the wisdom of having grown up and learned how to survive where you are and passing that on to your family.
So I'm really interested. So we have this this passing along of knowledge from grandmother to daughter to daughter. How does the family negotiate just day to day, for lack of a better word, decision making? Who decides where we're going to go, or is it sort of just a pattern they follow every year, or how does that work as far as you know?
Well, for sperm whales, the best bit of evidence in terms of day-to-day movements, sort of on the scale of dozens of kilometers, is that they're moving around searching for squid patches. Right? And it would appear that the decision making is made sort of by consensus or very democratically, because it takes a very long time for a group of sperm whales to make a big turn. Let's say like a 90-degree turn from going north to suddenly going west. It takes on average like an hour and 20 minutes for that turn to happen slowly, and then have all the animals suddenly going the opposite direction. In animals that we know where it's much more single leader based, sort of more autocratic, those things happen much quicker because I make a decision and then everyone follows. So I think when times are good, and this is sort of what we're seeing with the killer whales, the leader kind of steps back and the group kind of goes about its life in maybe a more sort of egalitarian scenario. But when things are bad, grandma steps up and says, I know where the fish are when it gets like this. Everyone follow me. So I think there's probably some flexibility there. But it's not this sort of dominant hierarchy, which you often see, say, like in primates. But there are rare exceptions. There's this amazing study of baboons where tuberculosis hit the community really, really hard. And it eliminated all of the big, very dominant and aggressive males for whatever reason. What happened was that troop became much more peaceful and the levels of stress were a lot lower because the females sort of could hold their own against the remaining males. But what's really neat and important to understand is that males come in from other families to join troops. So you'd assume that eventually that would be broken by a big, strong male who would come in. But as it turns out, no, that doesn't happen. Males still move in, even a decade or more after this happens, and everyone lives a much more peaceful life. So what it shows is that sometimes the existing hierarchy or order of things actually isn't the best way to do things for everyone. And that these hierarchies can be overthrown for something that's much better for everybody in the community.
There are lessons for humans in that.
Yeah.
Speaking of males, if you're a male sperm whale, very quickly, what's your life like?
Well, you grow up and your family, it's like anyone else. Until you're in your early teens, you learn your natal dialect, you live with your mom, you take care of the other babies. And then sort of in your early teens, you leave. And we sort of thought it was this testosterone-y walkabout, like testosterone would kick in and they'd go in search of breeding females. But it's different. What happens is mom has a baby, and then all of the females stop associating with the young sort of teenage male. And he kind of just gets socially isolated out of the family until eventually he leaves. And then for about 20 years, they'll roam the ocean, mostly alone, although there's some evidence that the young males group together and form what we call bachelor groups. But then once you're big, we know that the males can switch oceans and breed in different parts of the world. But the big question is, can they understand each other? Because we know sperm whales in Dominica speak different languages than those in the Gulf of Mexico and certainly the Pacific or wherever you are. And we know that you learn your natal dialect when you live with your mom. So when you leave, and 25 years later you end up in the Galapagos, how well can you communicate with each other? And that's a big question that sort of drives me to have this study last a long time, is to have a better understanding of where the males are coming from, who are the dads to all the babies that we know, and what happens when they meet animals from another culture and want to breed. Right? I mean, that happened to humans, right? It's just that instead of changing the males around, you know, instead of sending females from your natal group to another neighboring clan, in the sperm whales, they're sending the males around. Not sure if you understood each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Shane. This has been absolutely fascinating. No questions in our feed, but which is probably just as well because I got all my questions answered as far as I'm concerned. But if those of you who are watching, you can, if you have a follow-up question or you just want to see what Shane is doing, he's on all the social medias. We'll put that in our show notes. And also you can check out his website at the spermwhaleproject.org. So awesome. So thank you again. And and one last thing. Here in South Dakota, we are upstream from the Gulf of Mexico, which feeds out to the Caribbean Sea where these whales live. So watch what you put in the water. The whales don't need any more plastic or junk or pollution or any like that. They've got enough to deal with. So keep our oceans clean, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Shane. Have a good one. Stay safe. Be well.
Thank you. You too.